The circle and the square is sort of this joining of heaven and earth.
It is the center place of our lives and is a place where we orient ourselves in the universe, in the cosmos, as Hugh Nibley would always talk about.
Flat earthers aren't into that. That don't sell.
Adam, who brought death in the world, had life on his head, and Christ, who brought life in the world, had death on his head.
Wow, this is actually super profound, bro.
This is the stuff I love.
The circle being the eternal and the square being the temporal.
Next time we'll cover the pentagram.
The WardRadio logo. Mother freaking symbolic, bro.
I think Moroni is happy that we have a better mark.
Thorvaldsen tried to figure out why he chose that pose, and it's actually disputed.
We just are not literate enough as a society to really know what these icons mean.
This episode is brought to you by Go and Do Travel, specifically their Gospel on the Nile tour in Egypt. For discounts on all of their tours, please check out the links in the description. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to WardRadio. I'm your host, Cardinellis. Today I'm joined in the studio by Jonah Barnes, Jacob Hansen, and Austin Falter. And today we've got a super fun conversation. We are going to be invoking the assistance of the patron saints of WardRadio. For those of you that watched our recent live stream, you saw that we are now indeed protected by the saints of the WardRadio wigwam. And as long as this burns, we will have nothing but good RPM, good click-through ratio, the whole 9 yards. And today's topic is a super fun and interesting one: the 6 hidden symbols in the church's logo, and Austin is bringing this one to the table. So are these like in an evangelical way, like, look at the hidden satanic symbols in the Salt Lake Temple, those Mormons are taking you to hell? Or is it like, ooh, the 6 hidden symbols?
No,
like kind of like
there's
a
some,
cool
there's
way.
some cool ones. There's some cool. So we always have these like fancy authors with their fancy books. They're speaking Hebrew. They know the Apocrypha. Just all the and you know, they could be lying through their teeth about this stuff, because who reads the Apocrypha?
Who
knows
that garbage?
Hebrew, right?
Who reads that garbage?
Here you are. I'm a visual learner. I'm a film guy like you, Cardin, and we're just underrepresented. I tried to pitch this to Jacob, and he's like, no, this isn't philosophical enough for my channel. So here we are.
So
you're saying this is low art and you're high art, Jacob? Huh?
No, what I'm saying is that's no art, and I'm visual art. We're representing our visual learners today.
Okay.
With this line,
with candles.
That's right. See, this goes with our. So the thesis here is the church logo is divinely inspired. It absolutely hits the mark. I'm sorry to those who miss our friend Moroni, but I think this new one is an improvement. And there's there's ancient symbols that we have in it that we just are not literate enough as a society to really know what these icons mean and some of the deep meaning behind them. And so we're going to talk about that.
Bro.
Yeah, let's talk about some of that today. Okay, first of all, if you pull up in the Discord, I've got some pictures here. So we'll start with the church logo. Obviously, you've seen this. We've got the name of the church. We've got the Christus statue. And then we've got this arch shape. Those are kind of the main elements here. I, as much as, the Christus statue, it's great. I'm not going to talk much about that. I'd like to focus on the arch today. But as we were talking about this, Jonah had something on the Christus statue that I had never heard. Obviously, arms outstretched. He's got the symbols of, his of the cross, of the crucifixion in his hands. He's wearing priestly robes. Lots of cool symbolism there. But Jonah, take it away.
Well, I mean, the most obvious. So this is the Christus statue, right, by Bertel Thorvaldsen or whatever his name is, and so this was done not by a member of the church, but the leadership of the church said, we need this. This needs to be the symbol of our faith, and so I think the church bought the rights to the Thorvaldsen Christus statue a while ago, and replicates it all over. There's one at Temple Square that's gorgeous, right. and these things. But the pose that Thorvaldsen put Christ in is one that the biographer of Thorvaldsen tried to figure out why he chose that pose, and it's actually disputed why he chose the pose. And there's enough dispute around it that you think, okay, well, it's not just like a default. Like, this isn't the default position of Christ, okay? There's lots of different things that Christ does with his hands, blessing or this or holding a scepter or whatever, like that he does in lots of iconography. But Thorvaldsen specifically chose this for a reason now, and we don't know the reason, but it had premeditation behind it. In the catacombs under Rome, where the early Christians were hiding, there's depictions of them in a certain pose, and the pose is called the orante. And the orante pose, there's a couple pictures of it in the Discord. There's a ton of stuff in the Discord. Poor Cardin is sorting
Is it
through
this
all these
one
things.
right here?
Yeah, so that's the orante. So this is a picture of somebody in a paecula, I think it's called in Latin. It's some kind of an open poncho that they would wear when they were being washed and anointed. Some weird ritual that they were doing that the Roman Church actually tried to stamp out later on. But in the catacombs, it would depict them there with their hands stretched up above them. Many of them would have them in front of an altar.
Is that a woman who's also wearing a veil while doing that? Is that a veil, or is that no?
I don't know. There's a couple of
Looks like
pictures in there of
there's
the
something
orante.
there.
But they would have their hands upstretched when they were in this type of a prayer pose. And there's lots of depictions of it in the catacombs. And the idea behind it was that there was symbols closely associated with the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And that this symbol was the ultimate culmination of posing like Jesus Christ because you were being crucified yourself. That you raised your hands above your head as if you were being crucified. Like Jesus. You were impersonating or embodying his sacrifice. But the difference is that Jesus is no longer crucified, he's risen. And so he brings the hands down from above his head, and that motion of being above your head and then down below your head is rising from the grave. It's supposed to be rising from the crucifixion to a risen state. And so when Christ's hands are depicted below him like that, it's the inversion of the orante. It is, I am no longer dead on the cross, I've risen above the cross. And so they would, so when it's above your head, you're dying on the cross, and then you're being risen when your hands are brought down low. And so Christ is in the pose of being the risen Lord. And so that is not just the default position of depictions of Christ. That is a very specific and a very sacred pose that he's in. So
That's cool. Yeah, I never heard that. There's actually I think a mini little documentary coming out at the I was going to say YIF Film Festival because I've been around you guys for too long. The ZIF the ZIF Film Festival.
What film festival's that?
Zion Indie Film. That one's next door. Zion Indie Film Festival. I think there's a one about the Christus going on.
Okay,
But,
cool.
I have a question. So he's wearing priestly robes. I also notice that it seems to be that those robes are slung over a particular shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
I take it that's not by happenstance either?
Not a detail of this is by happenstance.
None of it.
It's all
Well,
quite
let's
deliberate.
dive in,
All
man.
right. Well,
The
so
candles only got so long. The patron saints can only protect this conversation for
your
so
listeners tune into WardRadio not for concrete. Sometimes we like to delve beyond it's bordering speculation, conspiracy, and/or apostasy. So let's remove the Christus from this. Remove the little text from this, and go to the next image here. What you'll find behind the Christus in the church logo is something pretty interesting. Carden's going to pull it up here.
long.
Would you look at that? Actually,
Carton got a hold of it.
oh, there you go.
There we go.
Great
Like
build-up. That was very
Jesus
well
Christ.
executed, guys. For this and more.
No, we're left over with the arch, and it's become my favorite shape for so many reasons. You see this everywhere. You see this on gravestones. You see this on magic doors that open when you speak Elvish. You see this in fancy Italian homes, temples, churches. It's all over our culture. Christian cathedrals. And there's a few symbols here in this arch. First of all, the arch is made up of a couple different shapes. It's kind of a half circle, and it's a half square. We've talked about that. I know the women of WardRadio have covered that pretty extensively. If you pull up that picture of circles and squares and all that.
Okay.
As we know, the ancients saw these symbols as really basic symbols of a few things. The square would represent Earth. Flat earthers are going to love that. 4 corners of the Earth.
There's something for everybody.
Yeah, this is great.
If you're into the heliocentric model, you're going to love this. If you're a flat earther, you're going to love that.
Totally. It was, I mean, things in nature aren't ever square. Things that man builds are square, tables and homes. And so the square represents the world, represents mortality. Whereas the circle, one you turn around, it kind of represents eternity. And the ancients would use these symbols all the time. And so in the arch, we have this kind of dual symbol where it's not only a square, it's also your circle. And if you go to the next image with all of these, this circle and square all over in our temple iconography, you'll notice that, okay, this isn't just a nice looking symbol that we use, but it probably means something. Especially if you go to like Temple Square and you like point this out to your kids, they'll find hundreds of these all over the tabernacle and the temple and the gates and everything. And
next time, next to the pentagram,
right
down Baphomet circle.
Isn't it? So isn't the idea, at least?
Yeah. Give it to me.
Maybe I'm wrong, but the circle and the square is sort of this joining of heaven and earth.
Totally.
The circle being the eternal, and the square being the temporal.
The temple is a place where heaven meets earth.
Boom.
It is the center place of our lives, and is a place where we orient ourselves in the universe, in the cosmos, as Hugh Nibley would always talk about. And it is a place where heaven meets earth. And so, yeah, and not only do we see that with the circle and the square, but we see that in the arch, the half circle, half square. This is a place where the two meet and heaven meets earth. So that's hidden symbol number 1.
So I actually, and that's funny, I actually thought, I thought wrong. I thought that that this was supposed to be the spirit inside the body. That the circle is the spirit, that the square is the physical body, the spiritual inside the physical. And so,
yeah, flat earthers aren't into that. That don't sell.
Yeah, I thought the circle coming out of the body was...
Jonah, you are not wrong, and that is symbol number 2.
Thank you, Cardin. See, I'm not
and
wrong.
And that's what's amazing about these ancient symbols. They're so basic. I mean, they're circles and squares. You're going to use them everywhere. They're so basic that they were used in all sorts of ways, but you're absolutely not wrong.
Hey guys, before we go any farther, I just want to put a plug in for Go and Do Travel, specifically their Gospel on the Nile tour in Egypt. I just had a chance to take the tour myself, and let me tell you, it is amazing. The hosts are incredible. You got Greg Madsen, you got Bruce Porter, you got Brian Mickelson. They show you a phenomenal time culturally, but also spiritually and intellectually. They show you all the temples, all the sites, and they contextualize the Book of Mormon, the Book of Abraham, the Old and the New Testament, in a way that you have to experience it yourself. So in order to help you in that process, I've included a couple of links in the description of this video. Use WardRadio 5 to receive 5% off all of their tours. But you got to check out Gospel on the Nile. It's an amazing experience. Check out the links in the description. Without any further ado, let's go.
The second thing that this represents is going to be humans. Humans and how it plays. There's a link actually in the Discord.
Is this one right here?
It's a video. No.
Oh, you want us to play the video?
No,
link.
we'll look at the nude man later. The video.
Okay, cool.
See, there's something in here for everyone, Cardin. To make sure you were properly represented. So Jonathan Pageau, if you don't know, he's kind of the second counselor in Jordan Peterson's little presidency deal. That's a joke.
Who? Wait, who?
I got it.
Jonathan Pageau is
Jonathan
an iconography teacher, artist guy, but he's in the same circles as kind of like your Jordan Peterson type. And he's always talking about this Christian symbolism. And I think the clip should open at a timestamp. Yeah, just hit play.
This is attested to by the Syrian fathers, where there's a little heaven and a little earth inside you, and a ladder which connects the two. And then your body has that shape as well. If you've noticed, your head is round and your feet are square.
All right. Pausing for copyright.
Okay, all right.
Your body
So a
fits
human-
inside the arch. Keep going.
Okay. Here we go.
Being is made like an arch, not only an arch but also a square, because if you put your hands out like that, then you have the shape
That's
of a Western church with the extension of the four, and at the very top you have the east, which is the top.
So I
the
call my
roundness of
deltoids
the skull.
buttresses.
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, this
Beautiful.
is
There you go.
all these theological,
Pause
all
that
these
right
like
there.
weird mythological.
Okay.
There's a little heaven and a little earth inside you. That's what he's saying there. And
That's
the
wild.
arch represents that. We've got both
That's cool.
the natural man and the light of Christ.
That's crazy. That's
All
super
right.
cool.
And so the arch, another reminder when you look at the church logo, see this on your temples, it reminds me of my divine nature and of the dilemma we have on earth of well, we're mortal here, but my spirit is something greater, something more. This isn't a new
the earth is
idea.
flat.
And the earth is flat. And to shove this in Jacob's faith, let's pull up the nude man now. Actually, it's a great time.
Okay.
You might recognize Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man.
Crazy
Yeah.
Why did
fact.
he- go ahead.
Crazy fact. This drawing was made by a turtle.
Absolutely.
Teenage Mutant Ninja.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Amazing.
The reason he made this drawing is because of a Roman philosopher and architect, Vitruvius, who said, man is the measure of all things. And he described how a man's body would fit in both a circle and a square. And he's trying to
That's
explain this in
crazy.
philosophy.
I'm looking at this right now, and
Yeah.
it's funny. I always only saw the circle.
You see
for
the square
the
now.
first time,
Yeah.
I'm seeing the square in the image. I'm like, how did I never see that? I always
Yeah,
thought he was just the
same
guy
here.
in a
Isn't
that
circle.
beautiful?
And I'm like, wait a minute, no, there's a square in that, and it is.
Yeah.
It matches perfectly with it. That's crazy.
So that was Da Vinci trying to capture, he called it the Vitruvian Man after Vitruvius, who was writing about this, about how, man is both divine and mortal somehow, and how do we draw this?
Cool. The
So-
dual. Wow, that's cool.
It's pretty cool. Pretty
Wow, this is actually super profound, bro.
This is the stuff I love. All you Hebrew, you're talking about these words, what they mean. I forget it every time. But when I see the circle and the square on the temple, I really can ponder this stuff. So for my small-minded brain, it's good. All right, number 3, the primordial mound. Jonah, what is the primordial mound?
The primordial mound? You're talking about from which creation sprang?
Yeah.
You're talking about
Tell us.
the primordial. What is the what do we call it? We call it the unorganized matter from which,
I
or are we
believe
talking
it's
about the
matter
primordial mound
unorganized.
from which Adam's clay was taken?
Yeah.
That in the is it the Discourse on Abaton? God sends the angels to the primordial mound to retrieve clay from which to make the body of Adam, and the angel goes, and the earth, the spirit of the earth, talks back to the angel and says, "No, don't do it because it'll cause so much suffering." Which, by the way, if you've read the Book of Moses, you're like, "Oh my gosh, the earth is talking and has like emotion here, right?" And it takes 3 times. Finally, says, "Tell them that the Lord sent you," and he finally takes it back to the primordial mound, and he retrieves the clay and brings it back to create the body of Adam. That's,
Right.
Okay, cool. Hit it.
So the primordial mound is traditionally in the shape of this sort of dome or arch shape, where at the top is the point that reaches out above the waters. It is the top of the land where Christ would have stood at the top and created out of the dust of the earth man, as the creation myth goes. The primordial mound is that point. It's the closest point to heaven on that mound. This is why the best lecture I've ever heard on this is Bruce Porter, and you need to have him on the show before he gets translated, because that guy knows way too much. And I think you're going to Egypt with them pretty soon,
shakalaka.
right?
Oh, cool.
That's why he says that's why the pyramids are shaped in this fashion as well. Well, maybe not with a curve, but they represent the primordial mound. And so this arch in the church logo also represents that. It's the place where it represents the place where Christ raised us from the dust as our creator. And just like a grave, it reminds us that we will once again be raised from the grave.
I love the Christus statue at the Visitor Center in Salt Lake,
Yeah.
where a very large Christus is standing, and he's flanked by this round painting mural of creation, and it shows the cosmos and it shows the planets. I love it to remind us that he was born in Bethlehem. Yes, he was a man from Galilee, but he was also the creator of the heavens and the earth. It's a beautiful statue there at Visitor Center.
Well, and all of our graves should go back to this cool arch because it's the best shape. And I don't know why we're doing all these weird like flat ones or like super tall, and no, just the nice little
or like
rounded.
the Joseph Smith mixed with the Sphinx.
Okay, that one's pretty good. That's
Yeah.
pretty sweet. That's cool. But yeah, I love it.
Yeah, who knows why that wasn't chosen as a symbol for the church?
The
Joseph Sphinx, right?
Joseph Sphinx.
That one lost out.
Oh man. Number 4. This one's pretty quick. You had Andrea Wood-Mancy on your show.
Yeah.
You remember what she talked about with the ketubah?
Yeah.
Got that image pulled up here. The ketubah was the ancient Jewish wedding contract, and I think they still use them to this day, right? It's called a ketubah, and this is where they would write their covenants and really sign the deal.
Where did you find all these? This is cool.
I love symbols, and when I hear a new one for my favorite shape, the arch, I remember it.
Well, it also says on the top of the picture, Shabbat.org.
Yeah, this one.
So, and you got this one from Wikipedia, and then some cat named Danny Azule just posted his wedding vows and his ketubah.
So I didn't know about this one until Andrea started talking about it, and so ketubahs are traditionally shaped in the shape of an arch, and it represents. So to me, this represents covenants. Marriage covenants, covenant with Christ, his covenant with the church, and so another symbol of this. And fourth and final, another clip from Jonathan Pageau, but I don't have the timestamp, so we're gonna ignore it. He says that maybe a proper interpretation for Christ as the cornerstone is actually, well, in architecture, the stone that matters the most is the keystone, and so you would say Christ is actually probably the keystone is maybe more accurate. To us, we recognize that symbol because we talk about the keystone a lot with the Book of Mormon. But in this case, if Christ is the keystone, he is at the top of the arch. He is the center of the arch. And in case we forget, they put the Christus right in the center of the whole thing, just to remind us that the arch does also represent Christ. He's the one who stands atop the primordial mound, creates man in his own image, so that's number 5. Is the arch represents Jesus Christ.
All right.
That's wild.
So there you have it.
That's crazy.
There's a lot, and there's probably way more that I just don't know, but because these are ancient symbols.
Hey, you know what else I just realized represents a primordial mound, bro?
What's up?
Look at the box behind you on the screen. The WardRadio logo.
Antenna.
Mother freaking symbolic, bro.
That's awesome. There you go.
Wow. Okay.
I love the best thing is pointing this
wait.
out to kids.
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
Is there a symbol that I think I might have missed? Okay. What is? And did you guys? I don't know.
5?
Did I?
You got the 5?
Hold on. I might have missed. Go through 5 one more time. Make sure I haven't missed.
Okay. Symbol. The arch reminds me of a place where heaven meets earth.
Okay.
The arch reminds me of my divine identity and purpose because it represents humans as well.
Uh-huh.
The arch reminds me of the creation myth and my relationship to God as creator,
Okay.
the primordial mound. It reminds me of my covenants with God,
Okay.
and it reminds me of Christ himself
Okay.
as the keystone and cornerstone of our faith.
Okay.
And-
I'm
and-
gonna add one more level to this. Then.
Okay,
What is the tool that you use to make a circle?
and that's right. And that is what is so beautiful about the symbol is we have constant reminders all around us, in the temples, on the temples, all around us in our life. Constant reminders of the circle, the square. To make a circle, you would use a compass.
Yep.
To make a square, you would use a
square.
square. And those are also ancient symbols that are all over. They were inscribed on the Book of Mormon, as Don Bradley has discovered in his research. Or at least like on the Urim and Thummim, there was like
On the
it was in the shape of
or was
right,
it was it on like the cover page or the seal?
it was on the
was the
seal. It was like
seal.
on the top of the plates, right?
Yeah. There was a circle.
These are everywhere in our temples. On our
And Jonah,
temples.
we missed this one. Is this the same Is this the same symbol that was found
Right.
in...
So the original drawings of the Christus that the sculptor had, Christ's arms were above his head as if he was being crucified, but then he brought them down to show that he had been risen. So the orante, this crucifixion pose
Right.
that the early Christians would pray with, bringing the arms down, was a symbol of him rising. He was the risen Christ.
So
And also, I mean, he's also naked in a tunic, right? He's also naked in a linen cloth, right? So when he was buried in the tomb, he was buried with linen wrapped around him. So
Was he anointed when he wasn't the body anointed?
he
Yeah.
was totally anointed.
By Joseph of Arimathea.
So he was in a priestly robe, anointed with oil.
But Mormons are satanic! Mormons are satanic!
There's a lot to that, for sure.
He was
next
also,
time we'll cover the pentagram.
he was also wearing a diadem. He was also wearing a crown.
Whoa,
Right.
really?
The crown was
Well,
a
and,
symbol.
and pull up your saint candle. Show it to the camera here.
I don't know.
Around a lot of these saintly pictures, there's often a halo around our head, right?
Those are
I think
headphones,
that's-
Austin.
Oh,
Those
sorry.
are clearly
no,
headphones.
it's there.
There's a
It's there.
halo.
Look,
There's
look,
a
look, look, look.
There it
It's
is.
right
I
there.
see it.
And then, wait. Here's the one.
Wait,
of
you
Saint
mean
Brittany.
some sort
She's
of a
got halo.
circular type
Circle around
thing
the
above
head
your head?
to remind us of divinity.
So
These symbols are everywhere. And in the Book of Godwin, they're all over here. Now we have our own
Well, it's the Book of Mormon illustrated by
sorry.
the Library
Book
of Godwin.
Mormon, whatever, sorry. We have our own iconography as it relates to the Book of Mormon passages, which I am thrilled because this stuff is so rich and it just gets you to ponder in a different way. And it's something you could even teach to kids. You can say, look at the circle over there. How many circles can you count? How many squares? You know, it's a place where heaven meets earth. It is a beautiful way to teach. And we don't teach it. We don't know this stuff in our culture at all. So for those of you mad that we lost Moroni as our symbol, like this, I think Moroni is happy that we have a better symbol, a better mark.
Okay.
Love it.
Well,
Well,
okay. So hold on.
we'll see.
You got more.
Because you brought it up.
Okay.
I'm going to throw this in the Discord real quick so the Cardin can pull it up. Because if you didn't know, fun church history fact, the original Moroni, not the one we have now, but the
Hey-o.
original Moroni,
Look at him, halo and everything.
well, that's not a halo.
What is that?
That's a diadem.
Nuh-uh.
That's a diadem. That's a crown.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah. So Adam, when Adam died, this is in my forthcoming book. Actually, you can read about this. The Apocrypha, it talks about how when Adam died, his son and his wife retrieved boughs from the tree of life, from paradise, little boughs, little tiny branches, and they sewed them to make a crown to place on
Sure.
his head. And it was the eternal tree, right? It wouldn't die. It was the tree of life, and so they put it on his head. Christ was crucified not with boughs from the tree of life, but with thorns, right? So Adam, who brought death in the world, had life on his head, and Christ, who brought life in the world, had death on his head. So it's a reversal, an inversion of Adam. So Christ was buried, just like Adam was, in priestly robes, wearing a diadem. And Moroni, the original Moroni, is wearing priestly robes and wearing a diadem, flying through the midst of heaven, blowing on the trump and holding the everlasting gospel to announce to the earth. And this was the original Moroni statue. It was actually a weather vane. It would actually turn with the wind.
Yeah.
Now, also,
cool.
but before we end this one here, there was two pictures we didn't get to. Who's this guy jumping out of the Jack in the Box?
That's an altar.
And then, oh, sorry.
Nice.
And then this dude who's got like the Sultan's pillow or a turtle.
That's
It's one of those.
not a turtle. That's the bread. So that is the orante again. This is this pose
okay.
that they would do to impersonate Christ on the cross and then lower the hands to impersonate Christ rising above the cross.
Oh,
It was called
I
the
see.
orante. So
Okay.
this is the sacrament bread that would be on an altar. And these depictions are all over the catacombs, and people didn't really know what the heck is going on. Some of it was tradition. Some of it we found in old documents. But this here he is before an altar. It's usually a person praying before an altar. In the Gospel of Bartholomew, it depicts the disciples standing around the person who's at the altar as they are doing this pose, and it's how they're praying. And they all said, this is how Jesus instructed us to pray during the 40 days. He gathered us around in a circle, and we did this orante pose to impersonate Christ's crucifixion. They did all kinds of symbols to impersonate Christ's crucifixion. And so that's what that is.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, let us know where we go wrong. And by we, I mean Austin Falter. You know what I'm saying? Let us know where we go wrong.
By we, I mean him.
Yeah, exactly. And as always, for this and more, please make sure you check us out at wardradio.com.